Welcome to this week's episode of 10 Weather Chat. I'm here with Chief Meteorologist Todd Howell, and we're coming up on 1 year since a very strong, actually the strongest tornado that I've been here for in our viewing area. It was an EF4 tornado in southeast Kentucky.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 1 year.
I know.
mean, it almost seems like it's longer than that, but just a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a year ago, we had it was a Friday night, May 16th. Very late in the evening, there was this persistent supercell.
Right.
And we were watching it come across southern Kentucky.
Right.
I mean, we had all day to watch the cell.
Right.
But the question every time you have a cell like that is, will it still be there? Or is it going to fizzle out? Is it going to move into a more stable environment? And that one was all by itself.
Yes.
And looking back, hindsight's 2020.
Right.
It had all of the energy to itself. It had no competition.
Yeah.
And it was able to maintain itself. We'll go more in depth about that particular supercell, but it did end up affecting Russell, Pulaski, and Laurel counties in Kentucky.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When you said that, that reminds me too of hurricanes. Sometimes they don't want to be disrupted. They want all that environment just by themselves so they can absorb all that wind energy. It was a long track tornado, devastating. We're going to go into details of that. Yeah, it was fascinating. It was certainly interesting, and we're going to talk more about this, about the nocturnal nature of tornadoes that are harder to see at night, and what do people do when it's late at night, and how do they stay alert and prepared. So we'll talk more about that too.
Okay, so first I want to start with a video loop that Daniel has for us here. Let's do the supercell loop of the storm evolution. So
I jumped the gun. I went ahead and pulled up your graphics there.
We'll get to the damage in just a moment.
I was so
good,
excited.
Yeah. So this is a video that we had saved from last year of the radar loop of the evolution of the supercell. So it actually developed near Springfield, Missouri. That's at 1 p.m. on that Friday afternoon.
Wow, look at that. Yeah.
Yes. So it developed way west, 450 miles away from southeast Kentucky. So the supercell developed early in the afternoon.
And we had convection ongoing way beforehand, but
we had one round of storms already.
One round of storms, but that moved out and allowed the atmosphere to recover.
That's exactly what, and see, that was the question. How far east will the secondary cell be able to make it?
Right.
When we've already had one round of storms.
Right.
In the afternoon,
right.
Mind you. Daniel, can we loop that?
Yeah.
And see that move forward? Okay.
And this is fascinating too. We're going to talk about this for folks. So we're talking about severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, and this is what we sometimes have to deal with. Is the atmosphere going to recover? A lot of questions. This is fascinating, what we're looking at right here.
So this is tracking that supercell as it produced numerous tornadoes on its trek from Missouri.
Look at that. Look how it held together the whole time.
Yeah, and every one of those pink boxes that you're seeing pop up are a confirmed tornado. And this is the one, this is it. So this is 11 p.m. on Friday night. This is when the tornado entered our viewing area. So that's when it touched down near Somerset.
Yes.
Look at that perfect donut.
It is, yes.
Right there. That was our first sign that this could be not just a tornado on the ground, but bad.
Right.
That's when we started to see the debris ball showing up on the correlation coefficient, indicating that debris was being lofted into the atmosphere. And shortly after, we got our first image, which you have to be suspicious of everything in this world with AI.
Right.
But we could see a very clearly defined funnel. And that tornado stayed on the ground, touched down initially in Russell County, moved across Pulaski, and then into Laurel County. This is now when it was moving through the London area, just south of London, actually.
Right.
At its peak strength, it was an EF4 with winds of 170 miles per hour. It was on the ground for 55.6 miles, almost an hour and a half in the supercell.
Right, about 90 minutes or so. Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so the path width was close to a mile wide.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the damage from an EF4 like that is catastrophic to structures. And particularly in Laurel County, we did see many of those homes completely destroyed.
Right. Exactly. When you showed, and that right there, we're on boxes, look at that. You mentioned the purplish pink box. That's different from a red polygon with a tornado warning. You mentioned confirmed.
Yes.
Long track tornado emergency. I mean, there's different tags and labels that the Weather Service puts on tornadoes. Once they're confirmed and we have an actual tornado on the ground. You mentioned the debris ball. We were tracking that. And that's debris lofted in the air. It is simply damage.
Yeah.
The tornado is producing damage. It's taking the debris. That means anything. That means trees, roofs, shingles, dirt, anything and everything. It's lofting it in the air, and unfortunately, it's cleaning some foundations.
Yes. And
sweeping them clean, unfortunately, and wiping everything out in its path. It was a very destructive tornado.
It was very, very strong. In fact, in Laurel County, it was the strongest and the deadliest tornado in Laurel County history specifically. And then just in southeast Kentucky, this is extremely rare to have a tornado this strong. It's one of the strongest and longest track tornadoes in southeast Kentucky history. It's hard to find all of the data on that specifically.
Right.
But just a highly unusual event for our part of the country to have something that strong make it here.
Right, and that's a great point. We don't normally see that when it moves into our neck of the woods. But as Daniel's showing this loop again, this is a great job of this loop. Because it held together.
It did.
It held together.
You know what it reminded me of, actually?
Intensified some.
It reminded me a lot of the Nashville-Cookeville tornado in 2020. That also was a supercell that developed west near the river in West Tennessee.
Yes.
And that little bugger held together all the way across the state, all by itself.
Yep.
Similar story where it had its own environment to work with.
Yep.
And also nocturnal, which is why it surprised people and unfortunately did cause fatalities in Cookeville.
Yep.
That was in early March in 2020.
Exactly.
And unfortunately with this tornado, we did end up having 19 fatalities.
Yeah.
We had one in Russell County, one in Pulaski County, and 17
in Laurel.
In Laurel County.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So now, Daniel, let's pull up Max 1. We talked about the structural damage to homes, but this also caused a severe scar through the trees.
Look at that. It occurred May 16th, right? Late night. So everything's leafed out and greened out. You can clearly see that scar. And
isn't that wild?
It's like the tornado. It's like a vacuum. It's just literally, for lack of a better term, sucking everything up off the ground and lofting it. And that unfortunately shows how long it was on the ground. Look at that scar, and that's typical of long track destructive tornadoes.
And that moved. This is the scar from an emergency manager that was up in a plane. Was able to get the aerial view. That's the track of the tornado between Somerset and Pulaski through Daniel Boone Forest.
Right.
You could actually see this scar on satellite from space weeks later because whatever was left died.
Yeah, exactly.
And as far as the trees go. And,
right.
Oh my gosh, I keep hitting the microphone. Sorry. As far as the trees go. So you can see that very clearly defined tree damage and in the path of that very, very strong tornado. Then we also have a picture of... There we go.
Yeah.
This is very clear where the center of the vortex went. This is in London. Unfortunately, you can see the debris that's been thrown around right through a community in South London.
Right.
In that area. And then when we were talking about the leveling of the homes.
Yeah.
This is what you're looking at in this area. Notice how there are almost no homes completely standing in the immediate area that's very close to where the actual center of the tornado came through, and also the trees have been buzzed off, de-leafed, and even debarked in some cases.
It's classic, in the classic insulation thrown up in the trees and strewn about everywhere. It's when people say it looks like a tornado went through, well, this one obviously was a EF4, 170 mile per hour winds, focused. That's going to do this type of damage, unfortunately.
So it also happened at night. And so this is why, now, I want to go ahead and say and knock on every piece of wood that anybody can reach anywhere around here. You're looking right now
use my head.
At some of the damage. We have not had hardly any severe weather this spring season.
Yeah.
Last May...
It's been very unusual.
...was extremely busy. We had multiple tornadoes in our viewing area, not just this one. And we had multiple... Last May just wouldn't stop. This May has been completely opposite. We've been cool, very stable. And I hope I don't jinx it by saying that. Also part of the reason this tornado was particularly dangerous, in addition to being so strong, was the fact that it happened at night.
Yeah.
Which a lot of our tornadoes do, and that's what I wanted to show you here on this graphic.
Right.
This is looking at hour by hour the time that tornadoes typically happen in East Tennessee anyway.
Right.
And typically they start as we go through the afternoon into the evening, but then we have a secondary little pop that happens at 11 p.m. into midnight and into 1 to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's just because of the timing, climatology of how systems move across the country.
Exactly.
But that makes them all that much more dangerous because people go to bed.
Yes.
So they're unaware, if they don't have ways to receive alerts, that there's any danger.
Yeah. That is, we can't stress this enough. Unfortunately, it's just how it works out climatologically, nocturnally. A lot of times they're during the day in West Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee, and they come here at night.
Yeah.
It's just later in the day, later in the A lot of times we benefit, they'll weaken some, but not always, and especially in this particular instance. What are we looking at right here, Cass? The strength of the
this is the tornadoes by rating that we've had at this point. And you can see how rare it is to have an EF3 or an EF4. Most of our tornadoes are relatively weak, the EF0s, EF1s.
Right.
And that's what our homes are built to withstand.
Right.
That type of wind. Once you get beyond that point,
That's a good point.
Our building codes here don't withstand those stronger storms. Many don't in the first place. But, that can obviously be a tricky situation too. And then also tornadoes by month. We typically have most of our tornadoes in the month of April.
That's pretty clear, isn't it?
Well, there's several events that have skewed these numbers.
Oh, yeah.
But even if you removed them
2011, yeah.
and 1974,
Exactly.
if you remove both of those events, April is still the highest
It's
number.
still going to be the
Yes.
highest. Yeah, those are definitely skewed.
Yes.
But that's clear. And then we got another little bump up in fall.
Which
Yeah.
we didn't have that this
Secondary
past
season.
fall either.
Yeah.
So we really have been, and we don't want people to get lax on their severe weather awareness just because we haven't had it.
Right.
And we wanted to mark this 1 year since this significant tornado in our viewing area in memory of those who unfortunately passed away.
Right.
And also in honor of those that are still recovering
Right.
from this tornado. So that's why we wanted to dedicate this episode of the 10 Weather Chat
Yes.
to that particular event and also just severe weather awareness in general.
Absolutely. And I got to say this real quick. Cassie, you did an incredible job on air. Tracking this tornado. Seriously. It was, hindsight is definitely 2020. I was off that day. And then obviously tracking, Cassie and I were going back and forth. Like, this is bad. Hindsight probably would have come right in to help. But you did an incredible job at a time that was, not as, people probably weren't expecting them. Maybe it had already gone to bed.
Super late on a Friday night. We'd already had one round of storms during the day.
Exactly.
I think a lot of folks were caught off guard, unprepared.
Yeah.
By the setup. Because that's the question every time we have severe weather here in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
Will it or won't it?
Yeah. But you were there. Your
Thank
presence there, and I'm sure, unfortunately, yes, as you said, in memory of those lost their lives, fatalities, but hopefully by people getting that warning, we're able to take cover, hopefully in time, and that's what our job is. That we want everybody to be safe, and we want them to be informed whenever we do have severe weather. So always have a way to get your weather alerts.
Always have a way to get the alerts, and know that just because the season has been quiet so far,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it will continue to be. We can have severe weather any month of the year here in East Tennessee, including tornadoes. And we will, of course, keep you up to date on the very latest with the forecast. For right now, the big story is the heat that's coming in. As we go into the weekend, it's going to start to feel a lot like summer here in East Tennessee.
Oh, my goodness. You know how it goes. Put away the jackets. Now we got some summer-like heat, and almost time for Memorial Day weekend, unofficial start to summer. So, yeah, about almost right on cue.
We'll keep everybody up to date with the forecast, and I think that'll do it for this week's 10 Weather Chat. Y'all have a great rest of your day.